Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Career Shifts podcast, where we deep dive into the stories of those who have navigated the complex waters of career transition. I'm your host, Gopal. Today, we have a very special guest whose career journey has been as inspiring as it is instructive. But before I share more about my guest, I wanted to share another story. This time, it's about my mom. My grandfather uh, passed away while he was in service and was a locomotive inspector in the Central Railways. My mom got that role on a compassionate ground and went on to stay in the railways for 37 years straight. For people back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, careers were all about coming out of struggle and finding their feet. It was about stability, especially after coming out of extreme tough times. It was about finding your own means to survive because they had no other choice. Careers for them were a job. Today, careers have a different meaning. Though many, though to many, career still is about stability. In the post-COVID world, it is also about career wellness, something that Prabir spoke about in my last episode. It's also about balance, happiness, and holistic well-being. The question is, are we looking at careers that way? Or are we still looking at them through the lens of the 80s and playing the new game with the old rules? Incidentally, the month of May is also Mental Well-being Month. So I'm going to ask all my guests about what they do to ensure their well-being. And joining us tonight is Phani Pattamatta, a dear friend, one of my mentors, and of course, a name synonymous within leadership, innovation, and entrepreneurship circles. Funny's career spans over 3 decades, during which he has transformed companies, mentored startups, and led teams to achieve remarkable success. He has played pivotal roles in the various capacities initially associated with Wipro Computers in the customer acquisition roles. He moved then to Adecco to set up and head the IT recruitment and staffing business. He transitioned into global career transition management, outplacement services, and supported Adecco Global in identifying acquisition targets and building global client offshore businesses. The global number two staffing company, Randstad, extracted Funny from Adecco to lead their South business, where he scaled businesses to new heights before taking plunge into spearheading Thai Hyderabad, and eventually being instrumental into contributing T-Hub's mentor programs and now being board member at HICIA. He's someone truly who has been there and done that. Funny's unique approach to developing future leadership at corporations and commitment to nurturing next generation entrepreneurs have made him a revered figure in the business community. Today, he consults tech SMEs and innovative startups on growth and scale up strategies. His experiences offer tremendous insights into making strategic career shifts that align with personal and professional growth goals. So, without further ado, let's welcome Funny to the show. Hi, Funny.
Hi Gopal, the pleasure
Wonderful
being
to
here.
have you on the show. It's absolutely pleasure to be with you, and I've known you for the last several years, and it's always great to hear your perspective. So I know at the end of the day there is a lot that we speak. So today it's more about you sharing this to the community that we are talking to. How are you doing today?
I'm well. In fact, being in middle of the week and coming back after a heavy rain yesterday in Hyderabad. So we were all locked on the in the traffic for 3 hours, 2 hours, endless evening.
I can imagine.
But nevertheless, today is a bright sunny day. I'm all up for a conversation now.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Funny, you have had a fascinating career journey. Our listeners would love to dive deeper into that. And if you can share some pivotal moments that spurred major shifts in your career, that I think would be great.
Yes, Gopal, but let me also begin by congratulating you on choosing this most relevant topic, which is bothering probably many people, and launching this. podcast series on career shifts. It will definitely help a lot of people out there, and immensely valuable for people who are going through those shifts, be it voluntarily or involuntarily, without their reason. There's so much going on in the changing and ever evolving world today, right? So and
Absolutely.
to let them hear some of these stories. Thank you for choosing me this episode on the topic of career shifts. So, just to quickly answer, and thanks for that detailed profile. I know sometimes, I feel really old, when people talk about so many years of that experience that I had, 3 decades in post education, right? So, formal education.
Sure.
And I will try to probably, divide this into three different stages, the same experience, segment it in a manner, so that it will probably align, or in line with the stages of the startup and the startup's growth. I mean, last few years I've been really meeting a lot of startup founders. So there is an early stage startup, there's a growth stage, and a late stage startup. uh, and my career also probably progressed in a similar fashion, if you will, right? uh, and if audience, and you can get a mental map of how these journeys are different, because the objectives are very different at each of these stages.
True.
The outcomes you plan, are something else. And also the people who support these at these stages, be it the investors, be it the market that brings growth for these startups, is very different. So I will try to draw a parallel in terms of what happened during those stages. For this conversation, maybe I will keep the late stage aside, because that's something else. But definitely spend a little extra time on the early stage and the growth stage of my career, or startup, that I call Phani Pattamatta. Okay, where I had to start up again and again. So
Wonderful. Sure.
yeah, probably the first people on the other side, listening to this, would be a professional from, say, software development or delivery, or probably a HR, finance, or any other functional say leaders on the other side, or probably sales and marketing or business facing people, or even entrepreneurs, who are building innovative solutions. So let's stick to these way of segmenting, and see how people will be able to relate to what happened in those years for me.
Sure. 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 Funny. I mean, at the end of the day, you have walked through different diverse roles across different industries. Um, what drove you to make those changes, and how did you know it was the right time for the new direction?
So I mean, really, when uh, you're going through your work life, it's a very lonely journey. Your head's down doing what is told. And
Very true.
as a rookie salesperson, when I was selling Wipro computers, uh, there was so much to learn, from being a kid, probably from college, who was trained. I'm a trained civil engineer who never been a practitioner. I
Hmm.
studied computer science, but I didn't do a line of code in my professional life. So that's how I was. And then I got into sales, and selling Wipro computers. And there was so much that I had to really understand, how to do this. There are rules of the
Hmm.
game, you. So maybe I was fascinated looking at those medical reps, who used to go on mean machines, the motorcycles, the Java, Yazdi in our
True.
years, Royal Enfields, with a tie and a, very well dressed, and going on those roads. So I mean, they for me, I they were really head turners. When I used to see these people, or probably those salespeople who used to come door to door, to our houses, and sell those vacuum cleaners, which nobody
Hmm.
used after three times, or second time, they put it aside. My
Yeah.
mom also bought one, never used. Right? So,
Yeah.
going into sales, and like you pointed out about your mom, who's been a lifer in railways. My dad,
Yeah.
who started his career as a teacher, and retired a school headmaster, or whatever they
Sure.
call, and he was a physics and a chemistry teacher. I if I scored good marks, thanks to my mentor, my dad. And you know these are the people who, for whom, the first job is their job, and they retire from there, and then probably buy their homes. And so for a person like him, when I went and told him that I'll be selling some Wipro computers, and do some sales, it was hard for him to really understand, this job role. Okay, so it
Hmm.
started off from there.
Hmm.
But yes, what I learned, within 2 3 years is I have to keep moving up, and it's a very competitive, space that I was. And
Hmm.
also, if I have to move up the ladder, I need to really compete with folks from, say, larger markets like New Delhi, Mumbai, or somewhere else, where they're doing much larger quota, sales quota, as we used to call it, right? So
Right.
uh, for which you need to really map your market, if you will, do a SWOT analysis, try and agree on your sales quota every year. That's an exercise that companies, or probably your bosses, push you to do. So after three
Hmm.
four years, I realized that this is the same SWOT, even I can probably do it for my own personal growth. Okay, so I used to call it Chintan Baitak, so which is loosely translated a personal brainstorming session. All for myself. With no disturbances. Find a place and be true to yourself. As honest as you can, and used to do my own personal SWOT and arrive at my own personal North Star goal, or whatever, and have that pinned up probably on my softboard, in my workspace, and keep looking at it every day. How am I doing on that? But that is the beginning of time when I used to think, oh, okay, so next year I have to be in so and so location, or probably next year I have to take up this so and so role within the company, and then work towards it. Because my first boss, Sai Babu, from Wipro, he told, if you want to really progress into a next level, right, 80% of the time you have to spend on your current KRS, the work
Hmm.
that you are assigned,
Hmm.
that you agreed with the supervisor, and 20% of the time you do that other role that you want to shift into, right? So that's something that I, probably as a practice, it was very hard. You need to really devote a lot of time. You're not available for your family, friends, for most of the days, but that those were the times when we used to stretch those 20 extra percent of time to see how best can I move into the next one. So over like 10 years or 11 years into that selling, and at the peak of being a national sales head for BFSI vertical in Mumbai, a very large portfolio that I used to carry those years. State Bank of India, your LIC, the PSU banks and insurance, those were the accounts. So we remember, taking the MD of Wipro to those accounts and meet the MDs on the other side. So all that's the fun, sales always gave.
Sure.
But then I realized that there is something changing in that
Hmm.
same sector and industry, and that's when my next pivot was to move into a different area of work. But
Sure.
that for sometime later. But in the early stage, a lot of experiments, a lot of things that you do, and which keeps you moving. I think you are moving up the ladder, but that is the so-called I-shaped career, which is deep into one area of work, sales,
Sure.
negotiations, all of those, right?
Sure. So you were still with Wipro, you were still trying to do a lot of sales. And at one point of time, you felt that you wanted to do something else. And that's when something else happened. Do you want to share a little bit more about that journey as well?
Oh yeah, yeah, sure. Thanks. I think for bringing it up. Uh, so while I was doing this SWOT analysis as I started, that framework probably lived its life, Gopal, and then slowly I started moving into a newer framework. I called it, I mean, the standard CSS, right? The continue, start, stop. That's the map, or my Chintan Baitak used to be all about that. What am I
Mm.
continuing to do the same thing, and what are the three things that worked, what are the three things that didn't work, and if you aspire to do something else, so what are the two three things that you need to do. That's when I realized, being in sales, it's a very individual contributor kind of a role,
Sure.
and so you have probably three or four people under you, but at the same time, I mean, it's all your sales quota that matters, and not much, that really, I mean, you don't really get to do anything bigger or better in terms of span of control and all of those, right?
Sure.
So in some of these conversations, I realized operations, delivery, these are the areas that I should get into, for which I realized that I needed a management qualification. So I had to go and educate again at probably 10 years into 8 or 9 years into your work life, with I mean, I was in Bombay. My son, the older one, was born, and he was a tot. He was like 3 year old. So I used to devote a lot of time, going to the weekend classes, study something else, and then understand HR, finance. What is all that, to and the B schools teach you a lot of such things, right? So there, I realized that there are careers beyond just what I was
Sure.
doing. So with that qualification behind me, I started applying,
Hmm.
uh, and then there were three job offers which I was contemplating to take. One was, of course, a similar line of work, BFSA sales head, sales manager, or whatever, in NCR Corporation, which was also selling those large banking applications and solutions in those years in Bombay, in India. Then Oracle, offered me, I need to do probably software sales in a region called West, so that is the West region. So I don't have to move anywhere. So that was the second, offer I had. Uh, and then there was this company by name Edexco People One, okay, which offered me to build a IT recruitment and staffing vertical, right? So that was something, which I don't know anything about. I probably know that there are recruiters, there are headhunters, who was I know of one person, who got me those Oracle and NCR Corporation offers letters to me, but
Sure.
really wanting to go do that myself, I was like surprised. So when I was not deciding on the Edeco, there was this, executive search, there was a one executive who put me to his MD, who is Mr. Rajit Isaac. Okay,
Hmm.
one of the quarterly reviews, we used to go to Bangalore for the sales reviews. So one Friday evening, I went and met this man, uh, and he was telling me inspiring stories about what recruitment business is all about. And I said, I don't belong to this place. I'd rather want you to put me to say an IBM, or say a HP, into some sales role, but not why are you considering me for this recruitment thing which I've never done in my life. So he said two things, which still I remember vividly, and which changed the course of my career as well. Uh, he said, funny, at this stage, when you did your education, continuing education from XLRI, that tells me that you're willing to learn newer things, and so you can definitely learn this, recruiting or staffing business. So it's not really
Hmm.
difficult. Uh, he also said, imagine, you sell say 1,000 laptops in IBM in a year. That probably
Hmm.
is your sales quota, or you overachieved that sales quota, whatever. And versus, you placed say five or six CFOs in different companies, and three
Hmm.
of them have taken those companies to listing and IPO. Imagine the kind of wealth that gets created, and the per capita and the GDP that grows in the country.
Wow.
You're changing things. That's the reason why you should be here. So that really set me a purpose and confidence, that he wanted to trust and believe in my learning abilities and all of that. So that's I think one thing which stayed and probably pushed me into changing that career, Gopal, at that point of time. But it really worked. I think we did a lot of good things.
Fantastic. I think one of the things that I heard thus far is one, Mr. Ajit Isaac, and second, of course, Mr. Sai Babu. And hearing your story, I feel that organizations in the past would invest a lot in their people and train them to do newer roles that they have probably not done in the past. A lot has changed in the last 20 years where the tendency to look for near to perfect, if I were to consider people as products for a moment, near to perfect people who can be hired to do the roles, um, I think has become the norm now. In such a situation, I have two questions for you. One, what is the advice that you would give for organizations who probably have, in the recent past, not being as open to look for talent who's not, you know, exactly matching their criteria? And the second question, of course, is for individuals who, of course, haven't really uh, matched up to the requirements of the role. What would be the advice for them?
Good question. I think it might really be preachy to a few people, but let me take a stab at it, Gopal.
Sure.
So see, the organizations over the time, unlike in the past. Uh, okay, let me go take a step back. Sales or recruitment. I always after doing 10 years of both of them in large corporations, I realized, and the XLRI B school, and now I teach at a lot of B schools various topics. uh, those are not a full subject or a credit course in any of the B schools, be it globally or in India or anywhere else. They don't teach sales as sales. That's one topic under
Very
marketing
true.
or some other larger course. And
Yeah.
same is the case with recruitment. Recruitment is just one question that comes in an MBA HR or OB paper that you probably go and do, HR management paper that you do. So everything that is taught in B schools, somehow start with that word strategic, strategic finance, strategic marketing, strategic this, strategic that. So we realize that the hardcore tactics and the on ground, the real work that salesperson or probably a recruiting person does is not really taught on a formal basis.
Sure.
So hence, what was happening in those years was they had to bring people from a diverse or a different space who is not probably ready-made, and therefore they are probably aware that they have to
Hmm.
invest a lot of time coaching them, teaching them, and making them ready. So if I take my
Hmm.
startup called Phani Pattamatta, you said product somewhere, so so I was the
Sure.
product. I was probably being
Yeah.
probably somebody was taking me to the market. He was mentoring me how to get me to the market. Somebody was probably investing in me. So
Hmm.
there were those angel investors, as they're called in early stage startups, who come on
Hmm.
board, take the startup to the market, help them get some market access, open
Hmm.
their phone book, share them leads, etc., or probably get them some investors, the next level of investors, etc. So that's something that one needs to really do as an employer. But as an employee, your fiduciary responsibility and duty therefore becomes that you are becoming more and more marketable and more investable, if you are that product,
Right.
right? So
Right.
you're not investable if you're not willing to go to market, experiment, and then learn new things, or probably do those uh, 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 so in a startup in early stage, when they get the minimum viable product or the minimum lovable product, as they're calling it now, they take it to the market. They actually, launch a new feature or launch a new solution into the market quickly, because
Hmm.
timing is important. And then, the startup or the product owner or the founders keep listening the feedback that comes from the market, from the customers, and then keep improving and improvising on the features, right? So that's exactly what happens even in, so the recent mode, the chat gpt, for example.
True.
They've launched a version 3.0, then 3, 3.5 and 4. And imagine, the time when
A lot
ChatGPT
more
11
coming.
or
Yeah.
some 12 comes, it will be very different from whatever we're trying to do with ChatGPT today, right? So
Today. Yeah.
that's what it means. So somebody has to constantly invest, and there is also some learning and, the feedback that is looped back into your own self as a product. So that the loop is called, launch listen loop, launch listen loop, and it's continuous. Okay.
Hmm.
As a
Hmm.
product, if you're willing to do more, if you're willing to, listen to the feedback and, correct yourself and keep coming
Hmm.
back with newer and newer, you know if you're starting to deliver better and better results, for that matter,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Your investor or your, person who is investing in you will be excited to give you more, teach you more. So
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
attitude and, what the new person or the individual in an early stage career, therefore, is to be open, willing to take in that feedback constructively. And these days, while employers are probably looking at a, job description which is rooted in the past, and trying to find a person for their future work role,
Hmm.
which is, a fallacy, which I never understood why that happens. uh,
Hmm.
so with the rains outside
And that's,
Bhopal, there is
yeah,
also
that's the power cut.
power cuts. So I think,
Yeah.
the generator will flip over.
Sure.
uh,
Sure.
then the individuals, that are going into these jobs, and their ability and willingness to really learn, implement and do something different and better. uh, so I see a lot of these, young generation also, instead of, if they don't know something, or if this, they failed at something else, instead of saying that, hey boss, I screwed up, they try to cover it up, or probably give reasons why they failed. And
Hmm.
then, instead of going and, sitting in a training room, they go and sit in an interview room in a different other company, right? So
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
it boils down that, even in the new job, if there are
You may
you know
encounter the same
the
challenge.
new jobs, they'll come at the same point and fail again, you know so how many times will you shift jobs? Instead, go learn, come back and, deliver. So that's how people used to behave in the
Sure.
past, which is not,
Sure.
probably today.
Sure. No, I think you brought in a very important point, where there was self-reflection that you kept doing, which is Chintan Baitak, as you rightly said. Probably something that we all can learn from and implement, so that we are brutally honest about what we do, and so that we are able to then not go back and do the same mistakes. Very well said. Funny, coming back to you, when you were moving from one sector to the other, and you were trying to literally re-establish yourself into a new role, were there moments of self-reflection, or probably also kind of an imposter syndrome that people talk about a lot these days? Because in all my conversations, when I coach people, there is this element of, oh, we don't know the answer to these challenges, and I feel like an imposter here. How did you, one, did you feel that as well, or, and two, how did you overcome that, if at all?
So when you say the challenges that you're not familiar with, and so
Yeah,
and
completely
okay.
new role, and you couldn't, I mean, you were trying to learn something totally different. Did you
Oh yeah,
feel
yeah.
like,
So
yeah?
so I mean, when you're experimenting, when you're probably failing in some of those experiments, succeeding in a few of those experiments all the time, you will ideally be spending a lot of sleepless nights in
Right.
distress, worried,
Right. Right.
and also thinking, or probably going through your uh, going back to your design, I mean, drawing board, redesign, or reassign yourself, etc. So many of those instances would come when in my own career. For example, the decisions that I've taken to shift and change. uh, the first one that I already spoke to you about, say, moving from Bombay, a very
To
successful
Bangalore.
career, and doing something that I know very well for a long time, into something else which I really do not know. Let me take an example, personal example, for the sake of audiences. Uh, there was always that an element of self doubt. Hey, am I really getting into the right thing? I mean, because my colleagues and friends from the sales and Wipro and all of those people that were there in my previous network, uh, you know they advised me, to an extent, saying that, hey Funny, you're trying to make three different changes in your life. Do you think you're doing a wise taking a wise
Sure.
decision?
Sure.
And parents, in-laws, and Shamla was just conceived that period, so it was our second child coming up. So they were really worried. Can you guys cope up with all these changes in a new city again? You
Mm.
have to settle down. At least in Bombay, you're used to for a few years already then. uh, and then go into recruiting. There were about 40 odd people in Edeco People One Consulting by then, People One India Limited by then, uh, who were experts and specialists in that recruiting background. And I'm the one who's coming from a different other industry, and having to convince them that I can too, you know, maybe learn, which is what the belief that the boss had, and deliver, no, which is the target that the company has. So
Right.
thankfully, we grew from that 40 to almost like 400 plus people in IT vertical, 7 cities, and all of that. But in the initial days, I used to feel I'm a misfit here. I'm not. I'm somebody else. I don't think I
Right.
belong here. And tell you, Gopal, I think I joined in the month of Jan or Feb in that company, and it was the annual appraisal and pay packet revision stage. And month of March or April, the new papers were issued, and out of 42 people that were there on that day, 28 resigned in a week.
Wow.
Imagine the case. I mean, I'm a newbie in that whole business itself, and so I mean, is it that these people are not respecting me, or what is changing here? You know,
Mm.
and how do I really work around this situation and
Mm.
ensure that the company still has to grow the next quarter, right? You
Absolutely.
can't go back and
Absolutely.
give reasons. I mean, and then you're out, and
Mm.
you're on the road almost, right? So, and all of these are the ones which I took a risk and taken a judgmental call to go into as a situation. So, what helped at that point of time is uh, I had to sit with all 42 of them individually for you know maybe 30, 40 minutes, or maybe a couple of hours with some people,
Mm.
and take them out to lunch or a dinner, when it was at that hour of the day,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And then continuously keep negotiating them back to stay back, and have faith in me, have trust in me, and what difference I can make to their lives and careers and all of that, right? So we could thankfully put at least about 18 of them back. Maybe we lost 9 or 10 here or there, but
Mm.
then we rebuilt again. But what helped, drawing from my previous experience, was the capability or ability to keep negotiating. I realized, though they were different industries, though they're different, situations, uh, my capability to be able to negotiate, with people, because in a sales situation you're negotiating with your customer. Here you're actually negotiating with your own colleague, right? But still
Correct.
you're negotiating, and you're trying to actually, win at the end of it, right? So that really helped. And then I started drawing parallels between sales and recruitment. Clearly, uh, in sales, if I sell a computer at a rupee more, I make profit to the
Mm.
company. In
Sure.
recruiting, if I negotiate a offer at $1 less, I make profits to the company.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it's the same
Mm.
thing. End of it, right? Negotiations is continuous, in what you do every day. So that's
Absolutely.
biggest learning, and it helps. Your experience in one area, with,
Mm.
if it is deep enough, and then the other adjacent, areas that you learn over the time, that T-shaped, career that you will get into.
Career. Yeah.
You're not really, expert in, those other couple of areas, but you still will use your experience in one particular area into those other areas that you are getting into, and it helps. I think, that's how we should really navigate any such syndrome of, or self doubts that you have.
Absolutely. No, very well said. I think keep doing things, and even if you feel there are things that you're not aware of, ask questions, is what I heard you say. Funny, what were the role of mentors in your life and your career? Who do you consider as mentors? How did you nurture those relationships? Because people today often aren't clear of who to seek help from. What is your philosophy on that?
So, so Wipro has a very strong training and learning, programs. They really spend a lot of time teaching and training their people, right? Uh, Very early on, there were a few things that they teach you. One of that stayed with me was, if you're in doubt, ask. Don't assume. Okay,
Mm.
you assume you're making an ass of you and me, right? So both. Don't do that.
Yeah.
If you're in doubt, ask. So
Yeah.
asking questions, asking for help or seeking help,
Mm.
is somehow, probably I can say the hallmark of people in Wipro. Even with your customers, you're actually going and asking if you're in doubt instead of assuming a
Mm.
lot of things, right? So that's how we are taught. If you
Mm.
didn't understand what the customer is telling you, go back and ask, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
when you're asking, and then you get these answers, then you're actually, if you're not asking, they don't know, right?
True.
My boss used to clearly say, "Hey, funny, I don't know. Sitting in my cabin, I can't dream that you're having a problem, and I'll come and ask you." Right? Funny, are you
Mm.
facing some
Very true.
problem? Are you really, is that order coming through? What is going on? While
Yeah.
sitting, what's worrying you? Nobody will ask you those questions. Everybody is busy with
Yeah.
their own life. So it's for
Yeah.
you to really push and, ask for, what is, uh, 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 not really working at that point of time.
Right.
And the people who take more time, they are,
Mm.
willing to help or willing to support you, and at least show you, okay, so at this point of time, this is what you can do, and these are the outcomes. These are the, good and bad about, if you take this decision,
Mm.
or take and
Mm.
go and do this, and these are the two things, that might fail here. So it's up to you, go decide. So
Mm.
you're now more informed, you're well aware, and then,
Mm.
go and do your thing, because somebody really given you that guidance. And that's what, I feel the right mentors are, and keep choosing them, as opposed to people who are trying to play your game, right? They'll come and, tell you, do this 1 2 3 4. Now you go to the third step and fail again, because it's not your plan, it's somebody else's plan.
True.
How can you
True.
call
True.
them
Very
to be
true.
your mentor if they're giving you a prescription where, you're again going to go fail? So mentors are those who will, give you those options, and, the direction, and leave it there. Because what I learned
At the
over
end
the
of the
time,
day, you have to do it. Yeah.
yeah, it's the individual, it's the mentee, it is who, the mentee's game. Mentee is in the ring, the mentor is outside the ring, and the coach is outside the ring, coaching people. right? You can't
Correct.
involve and play their game. So there were fantastic mentors. Wipro is a, I mean, there's so many of them. But Sai Babu, I still continue to interact with him. He was there as a salesperson, then he became a CHRO, then in Wipro Peripherals, then he went on to become global vice president of talent acquisition in Wipro Corporation. So he played a lot of roles. Then there was Swaroop, who gave me a break in my first services business, from Unique Computing Solutions. He's been a mentor for me for a long time. If I'm in doubt, I can always pick up phone and ask him.
Hmm.
Ajit Isaac, yes, during the time that I was in Edeco, he was really been my mentor guide. And there was also a friend who used to coach me, who was from the same business, Ajoy Monti, who used to teach me a few things.
Sure.
uh, then later on in this stage, I found more of them. Kali Prasad, for example, who navigated me through my third phase of my career, the late stage. So there are a lot of people who influence, and a few mentors. You're confident that you can always go back and ask them, even though it is a stupid question, that they will help you, right? At
Got it.
least in the
Wonderful.
direction. Yeah. So
Wonderful.
there was something on Chat GPT I saw.
Yeah, yeah. So there was a comment which said, "I guess millennials will ask ChatGPT for career SWOT rather than doing Chintan session,"
Very
which
nice.
is what
So that's a
Sudeep
real
told.
interesting idea, and hopefully ChatGPT won't tell them that take a rocket and Elon Musk will send you to the Mars. So ChatGPT also has hallucination
Limitations.
that comes. So,
Interesting. So, funny, coming to the current phase of your career, today you end up meeting a lot of startup entrepreneurs. You coach them, mentor them in their startup journey. A lot of our listeners may be in their stage of thinking about what do they want to do next, and may have an idea that they may not be able to put to life. So let's say it's a dream that they want to pursue, but they are not sure how to go about it. Given what is happening in the industry, and given that you interact with a lot of these new age startups, what would be your advice to aspiring entrepreneurs or people wanting to pivot into entrepreneurial ventures? And it could also
uh,
be a freelancing gig.
yeah, I know. So freelancing gig may not be qualified under an entrepreneurship. So
Yeah.
I have something, uh, a kind of thought process on this. Um, so who is a person who is starting up, right, on their own? Someone who has a deep experience or expertise on something, right, and has done the same thing for multiple times, and they know that they can be successful,
Sure.
and they're really passionate about that particular activity, or that expertise that they have, and they know that there is somebody who is willing to pay to for if they do that, uh, and lastly, they're willing to take that risk, right? So a deep expertise, passion towards that, and paying customer, in their head. At least they know a few people. They will definitely pay them. And lastly, the risk and ability to take that risk. Right. So these are the four things that play out when you are venturing on your own. Right. So
Hmm.
someone could be in, like I said in the beginning, a software developer or a solution architect in tech space. Think
Hmm.
has really done wonderful things for the companies that they work, or someone in HR, training, learning, space, or probably finance, or any other function, marketing, sales, customer facing. So any one of them who wants to really do something on their own, uh, and they know that they have enough experience and they have a good network where they can get business from. okay, can
True.
always freelance, right? And that's exactly how many entrepreneurs have started up. Okay, so from that experience, they become consultants or freelancers, and since there are paying customers and it is repeating and
Hmm.
scaling, they get into starting their own company, right? And probably end up maybe having some innovative model or a tech into it, which can
Hmm.
multiply the same solutions or services faster, right? So that's how it all happens. And then
Correct.
once they make money, they turn investors because they invest in similar people later on. So that's how it is. And what does it require to do? It's mostly mindset. Entrepreneurship is mindset than anything else, right? So uh, if that mindset is within the individual, even within the same corporation or a company, they can be an entrepreneur, okay,
True.
and build newer products, newer solutions, newer geographies. I know of
Yeah.
young guys, taking up larger responsibilities of starting a new location, a new business unit, and under them, and scaling it within the same investment of that large corporation, right?
Hmm.
So it's that ability, it's that confidence, and that ability to convince your investor. It could be your own company's, wherever you're working. If you're convincing the same management or the board, or you're
Hmm.
convincing yourself and asking the external people to invest in you, right? So both are equally difficult. Internal battles are very difficult to fight, and so
Hmm.
much so the external battles are not easy, right? So everything
Correct.
is, so to make that difference, it takes a lot of capability to be able to do that. Uh, ask any entrepreneur who's successful, they will tell us, it's probably 1,000 times in a year they would have thought that they should go back to that job that was paying them those monthly emis, right?
Very
So
true.
that's something that cannot, I mean, that safety net, you cannot really, until unless you cannot let go of it. I think I told you or someone, in the circus, the people who do these stunts, the on the in the sky, moving from one
Correct.
swing to another swing. I always keep thinking, I mean, there is a safety net underneath. They know that if they fall, there is a harness. But until unless they leave one swing, they can't catch hold of the other one, right?
Correct.
Imagine that. Or even if a monkey, I don't want to take this example, moving from one branch to another branch, unless you leave one branch, you can't go or take. uh, so
Yeah. Jump to
there
the
is
other
no
one.
way that you can say, I'll still cling to this and hang on to this and think that I will go and do that other, hold that other one. It never happens. And
Hmm.
as the gravitation works, you'll go back to the old swing and to your datum, and not really be able to take that
Move
plunge.
forward.
You can't move forward. So that's an
Right.
example. I
Right.
keep telling everybody who is asking me, I want to start
Hmm.
off, what should I do? Leave that other one first. you know have that courage to
Interesting.
leave it, then you will get it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Talking about mental well-being, I know you, in the last 30, 35 years of work, you've had moments where you would have had self-doubts. You mentioned about the role of mentors. But at the end of the day, what role um, has your family played, or what are some of the other things that you do to, you know, find your safe space, if I can call?
uh, So acceptance, primarily, Gopal. You're coming to terms with your situation. The
Hmm.
faster you get there, or the
Hmm.
sooner you accept, the happier you are, right? So there will be changes, there will be uncertainties, and there will be
Hmm.
difficulties,
Hmm.
and every other person will not operate, or probably speak, or even you know interact with you the way you had planned out, right?
Sure.
So They operate based on their own plan. It's not your plan that they will have to follow, right? So your plan is in your head. You didn't even tell them that. So
Sure.
there will so uncertainties or my disagreement, or the one which I'm not okay with in people around me or situations around me. It could be the traffic yesterday. you know it took
Hmm.
2x 2.5x time, that usually takes for me to my office to home. Now, is it right, is it wrong? I can sit and stress my own self, or read or probably consume some Netflix movie till I reach my destination. So, having said, the sooner and the faster we come to terms with the uncertainty, like I said, there is a Chintan Baitak, there is this plan, there is this thought, with which you're moving forward, and you had already onboarded a few people, on into those decisions. So to that
Hmm.
extent, there is certain support system, the
Hmm.
harness or the safety net. When I was talking about the entrepreneurial jump, is that acceptance from your own family first, right? Your spouse, your children, you have to onboard all of them in the beginning, right? And that's the
Correct.
safety net you can always go back to. And what maximum can happen, Gopal? Swaroop, the name I took, in one of my mentors, he used to tell me, he was the first manager who used to take me on sales calls. Uh, when I was worried, brooding, I might lose the order, or say HCL will pick up this order. We hadn't done enough pricing. We are not strong in pricing, or this or that, right? He used to ask me, "What's the max that can happen, Funny? The worst that can happen is you will lose that order, right?"
Hmm.
So once you prepare for that worst, once you know that that is something that can go. I mean, the worst case scenario is this.
Right. Right.
What else can change? And once you know it, probably make your changes along the way, and see that you still win a part of it, or get your order split or whatever, right? So and he used to say at the end, at the best, the sky will fall on us. I'm just taking this because you know it's
It's raining in
happiness and
Hyderabad.
mental health. He said the sky falls on us, right? Okay, let it fall. We have never lived in that space, so let's understand the new thing, living in the sky or whatever, right? So don't really be bothered, worried. So that, I think, is something that I keep thinking, what the worst that
Right.
can happen? I will miss the flight, you know maybe
Right.
this person will be difficult for me, maybe
Right.
this situation is going to go against my plan, whatever. So what?
Right. Right. Awesome. With that, we'll quickly move into the rapid fire. So, first question is, sum up your career in one word. You need few
Eventful,
words. Okay. Eventful. Okay.
humbling.
Interesting.
Now I think it's humbling, really humbling,
Humbling.
because yeah, there's so many people that supported all through those experiments I did.
Wonderful. Which book has greatly influenced your approach towards your career?
Oh, that's a difficult one, Gopal. When you keep reading books, most of the time, so there's so many things. Let me see. In this, 1 hour or 50 minutes that we spoke, uh, I said the career is in three stages for me, right? The early stage, the growth stage, and the late stage. So in the early stage, the one book which used to be like my Bible, bedside, used to be this one titled "You Can Negotiate Anything," right?
Hmm.
By
Hmm.
Herb Cohen, right? So this is something that taught me a lot of instances and nuances about negotiating. How do you really play that negotiator, a sales guy? So that was one book I remembered I used, and got influenced a lot during my early stage career.
Hmm.
Then when I was managing people, when there were large teams and span of control, and so there's this Marcus Buckingham book, which is Now Discover Your Own Strengths. So
Hmm.
you need to know your strengths and your team members' strengths, and and then play with it when you're meeting a common objectives and goals, right? So I used to refer back to whenever I'm stuck with people, managing them.
Hmm.
I used to go back and maybe there'll be one story or one framework which I can go
Sure.
back and use the next morning, right? So
Sure.
today, after 3 decades and doing what we did, and also telling you that I had a plan, I executed my plan and all of that. The one which I'm reading, and I'm really uh, learning a
Hmm.
lot is why greatness cannot be planned. The myth of the objective, right? So I always, in the
Hmm.
last 30 years, thought it's objectives driven work that I do and all of that. And Kenneth O. Stanley says, oh, they just happen. It's not that
Hmm.
if you plan them, right? So that's something
Interesting.
that I'm reading now.
Lovely. The last question for you is, if you could offer a piece of advice to your 20-year-old self, what would it be?
Hmm. So I have one 24-year-old at home, and I have an 18-year-old, and both of them would not want to take any advice from me. They
Hmm.
would rather say yes, yes, Papa, and then go out. So, but nevertheless, the people that I meet, and the juniors in the teams who come and join us from campuses and all of those, I keep telling them, keep experimenting, never stop experimenting new things. What max can happen, you will fail. The sky is not going to fall on you, right? So don't be worried, don't be keep experimenting, because with all the support systems that they have now, right, uh, they're well informed, better than what we were at that point of time.
Hmm.
They're much aware, and they have good support system, like you know
Correct.
job, and it was a requirement, it was like important stage in career for many of us. But now they can experiment with their own selves, and be curious, never stop asking, and questioning that status quo. Keep asking, and
Hmm.
keep finding new answers, because you can always change them.
If you could go back in time and tell all of this or something like this to yourself, what would that be if you were 20 years today?
Maybe I would have really, stretched and struggled, and instead of letting go of my civil engineering training, or probably my computer science education, I would have built a chat GPT for civil engineers or something. I don't know. Some fundamental research I would have done.
Wow.
Now, that is one thing I always, was, I mean, what is something that I never did? I didn't probably do research at the right time, or right age, that I should have gone into doing. Right. So,
Amazing. So you would have wanted to do more research.
yeah, at least,
With
have
that,
doctor in front of that name.
yeah, doctor in front of that name. Well, there is no age for that. So you can still pursue that dream. Absolutely. With that, thank you, Funny, really for sharing your story, your insights. I think it's an enlightening conversation. And thank you on behalf of everyone listening in today. Um, and to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey into the transformative world of career shifts. Remember, the paths to personal and professional growths are not always linear, but navigating them with the right mindset and strategies can lead to fulfilling outcomes. I hope today's discussion inspires you to evaluate your own career and explore possibilities with confidence and clarity. Don't forget to tune into the next episode where we'll continue to explore dynamic landscape of our careers and how to create newer opportunities. Until then, keep striving for excellence and embrace change. See you next time.
Gopal, thank you so much on behalf of every person who is being influenced by these topics, and I really appreciate, and grateful that you've taken up this important topic. Many congratulations once again on that.
Thank you so much, Pani. It was lovely having you and looking forward to meet you again.
And
Thank you.
thanks to all the audiences who listen to my stories.